everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I am Justin, the Night Traveler.
I'm Nico, and right now, I'm in Justin's attic.
Wow, it's pretty small, just so you know.
I'm Dan, and I'm the boy who sleeps at night.
You know what? There's a lot of people with 1 in 4 Americans have a sleep disorder, so good on you.
Yeah, but we're actually here to discuss the film, It Comes at Night. So this was directed by Trey Edward Shults, and we've got Joel Edgerton as Paul, Christopher Abbott as Will, Riley Keough as Kim, Carmen Ejogo as Sarah, and Kelvin Harrison Jr. as Travis. So we open with Travis. He's a 17-year-old, and his mother and father, Paul and Sarah. Travis and Paul euthanize and cremate Travis's grandfather. I know, one hell of an opening. You see, the Earth has been overtaken by an unknown disease, and anyone who's infected must be burned. And they have to wear, like, gloves and a mask around them. It's pretty crazy. So,
Fucking imagine that, wearing a mask.
So, the family lives in isolation, and the death of Travis's grandfather kind of weighs heavily on the whole family. That night, someone attempts to break into the house. Now, Paul manages to knock him out and ties him to a tree. You know, he kind of does this to make sure he's not infected, as the disease typically shows signs within about a day or so of actually becoming infected. And, you know, he and his family kind of discuss the intruder. But Nico, what happens after that?
So they wait a little bit, and they determine that the intruder is not sick, so Paul goes out to speak to him. The man, Will, says that he had no idea the house was occupied, which was fair because it looked straight up abandoned, but that he was just looking for supplies for his family. Paul feels for the man and goes with him to just check things out and gauge his family situation. After he and Will overcome an ambush, the two eventually return with Will's wife and young son in tow, and their family will be living with his from now on. They bring back some like chickens and goats and stuff, and it's just it's nice and happy.
Okay. Being West Indian, I definitely would have been down to bring the goat. But Dan, what happens after that?
So, at first, things are good. Paul gives the new family some rules, specifically regarding the door leading out of the house and how it is not to be opened under any circumstances at night, except maybe in the case of like an extreme emergency. The families work together and things proceed smoothly, but things suddenly change. One day, Travis is out with the family dog, Stanley, and Stanley detects a threat and chases it down. Travis chases after Stanley and is also followed by Paul and Will. But Stanley gets away, and Paul tells Will and Travis to go back home, and the group go back, and the dog is just kind of out there lost.
Okay, I mean, Nico, everything's fine though, right? Dog makes his way back home?
The dog does eventually make his way back home. Yeah. Later on, Travis finds Will's son, Andrew, asleep on the floor of his grandfather's bedroom. Key thing here is that Andrew never actually slept in that bedroom. He slept with his mom and pop, so he must have traveled there in the night, theoretically. Travis then takes him back to his parents and heads into the hallway. And in the hallway, he sees the door, the big red one that's supposed to be locked, and he sees that it's open, and he can hear some noises from the other side. He then goes and wakes the household, and it turns out that Stanley, his dog, is on the other side. And he licks his face and wags his tail. He's such a good... No, he's, like, on death's door. And Paul indicates the dog is sick, puts the dog out, and, cremates it.
So the group then basically have a discussion, kind of recapping the night's events. And Travis tells the group that the door was open when he arrived, which means someone had to have opened it. Travis postulates that it could have been Will's son, as he found him in the grandfather's room. And, obviously, Will and his wife Kim argue that there's no way that could be, and tensions basically rise between the two groups. And Paul says that just to be safe, the two families should spend some time quarantining in their respective rooms, apart from one another, just in case someone is sick. And, I mean, it is kind of a logical thing to do, right, Nico? But what turns out to happen?
Yeah, just fucking imagine that once again. The next day, the shenanigans ensue. Travis overhears Will's son crying and Will saying that they have to leave. He tells his father, and Paul confronts Will, asking him to see his son. Will then holds Paul at gunpoint, telling him that he and his family want to take a fair amount of supplies and just leave. But they get into a scuffle, and Paul and Sarah take the family outside. Will is killed by Sarah, and Kim runs away. Paul shoots at her, but kills her son instead, and in tears, Kim tells Paul to just kill her, and he obliges with quite rapidity, just with a fucking quickness.
He's also very accurate with that rifle. But we're not even done. Dan, end it.
So now we're left with just the beginning family again. And it kind of ends with a gut punch. Turns out that Travis is actually infected. And we see a dreamlike scene where he goes out into the night looking for Stanley. And it turns out that it was real. He was actually sleepwalking. And we kind of assume, I guess, that he's the one who opened the door. Mm-hmm. So he gets sick and dies while his mother kind of looks on. And the movie ends with Paul and Sarah staring at each other across from the table. And their son is very missing in that scene. And they're both stricken with grief.
Missing?
He's missing? Dan, where is he?
He's not there anymore because we've seen this.
Is he on the back of a fucking milk jug?
I didn't say that very well. But we've seen that scene before where they're sitting at the table and it's the, mother, father, and son. And now it's just mother and father. So he's missing,
You're playing hide and go dead.
Him and Stanley.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so despite the jovial nature of our conversation, Travis is very unfortunately dead. But what wasn't dead were the visuals. They were bright and green and vibrant. I really liked them. I did. And this comes from that studio, legendary studio A24, and it really does bear some of their classic trademarks, beautiful scenery, well done cinematography and camera shots, angles, all of that. I mean, you really visually can't go wrong with this one. I mean, Nico, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I will say about this just straight up front before we even get into the sort of like analysis of the horror aspects is I think they just made a really visually pleasing film. This is well constructed and it just fucking looks good. Like, I don't have anything negative to say about it, and in particular the few horror elements that we do have with like some of the dream sequences and jump scares are well done. Like, hats off again, A24.
Mm-hmm. Dan, visuals, you see what we see?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. I mean, I think you guys nailed it. It's just, if you've seen an A24 film, you understand what we're saying. The quality that comes out of that studio, and they did it on this one too.
All right. Well, do they keep the same thing, kind of audio-wise? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think audio is on point as well. The music was great. The audio quality technically was great. There was a cool music thing I heard where there were some light strings in the background. It was sort of near the end. Maybe, I can't remember exactly when. Maybe when we kind of find out Travis is sick or
infected.
Yeah. Or maybe it was a little before when we find out that the other family is about to leave. They kind of wake up and the kid is crying. But it's sort of a brief respite of relative happiness anyways. And then, so we've got some light strings. So then the strings...
It's almost dreamlike.
Yeah. And then some parts of the strings go... And it kind of bends down. Dubstep, no. But it kind of bends down in just like a falling sequence into sort of the more ominous kind of tone. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. This was one of those where I think, again, the music wasn't really, or the score wasn't really front and center. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot more given to the visuals in this one. Not that that's a bad thing, because I also like the audio as well. I thought it was well done. And one thing I kind of forgot to mention real quick, for some reason, I'm like a little bit of a pyro. Whenever they like lit something on fire, it was so pleasing to watch that flame like shoot up. Whenever they like burned a body or something like that, they would spend a ton of gas on that and like light the body, or kerosene or whatever it is, whale blubber, whatever they were using to burn the bodies with. And I don't know where they even live. I don't know where they live.
Probably not fucking, well, maybe Alaska.
So you don't know.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Fuck.
But what do you know about the audio? You enjoy it too?
I did enjoy it as well. One thing that I really did like was actually the composition of the soundtrack. And again, this isn't something that, like we say on a lot of movies that are just well made, you don't really have too much of a focus on the audio and soundtrack. But one thing that I did very much like is it has its moments. Like the part where Paul and Will are going out to pick up Sarah and Andrew, there is this sort of crescendo of very cinematic drums that it just sounds like a rolling thunder, and it's just really, really cool that they had something like that instead of just the general sort of like light, ominous sort of drone notes, which they did, but like they spiced it up every now and then too, and I liked that.
So I think it's time for us to really, I feel like we got to talk about the, Jesus Christ. This is where my head is. I said it was,
We have to talk about Jesus Christ
No,
in this episode.
I was going to say it's time for us to talk about the goat in the room when really it's the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Which is, the movie's called Trouble, Trouble, Trouble. No, but those who know will know what I'm referencing there. But the movie's called It Comes at Night. Dan, what comes at night?
Justin does, apparently.
Stop it. Don't stop it.
Well, I'm logging off.
Yellow card. Audience, Nico's received a yellow card. This is ironically his 5th or 6th for the season, so he will be receiving a fine and potential suspension. But Dan,
It's true.
what is the answer to that question?
So I think it's kind of interesting because we never really see like what comes at night. There's a lot of speculation, and I think I would agree that it's Travis's dreams, because that's the only thing that we actually consistently see come at night. That's out of the ordinary for nighttime, obviously. Nothing else that I can really remember like actually happens at night.
Nico, where are your thoughts, aside from in the gutter?
Fair. Can't even deny that. You got me dead to rights. I think that the implication is that... See, here's the thing that confuses me. There's two sort of like ethereal antagonists here, or just not ethereal, but unseen sort of presences. We've got the disease and we've got the whatever the fuck it is. And I do enjoy when films sort of like make you be on the edge of your seat and like guess like what is it, what does come at night. But I will say I was still expecting there to be some sort of like thing lurking off in the distance, but I don't think there ever was. Correct me if you two caught something, but it seemed to be more of just nonstop suspense than having any kind of little hints like, oh, here's a monster's wing or something.
Yeah, no.
So I actually do think there is something out there. So in the kind of dreamlike sequence from Travis, we see that something injures the dog. We can hear the crunch as
That's right.
as it hurts the dog. And the dog saw something. And again, we're never privy to it. And this is the direction the film wanted to go. But we kind of get little small, tiny, almost, but not quite, zombie-like hints. You know, the classic like, do you have any news? We don't know what's happening in the city. That kind of thing happens. And we even have the classic people ambushing each other for supplies and food, that kind of thing. But there is a reason that Paul and his family do not leave the house at night.
For sure.
There is a discernible reason why they lock their door and bolt it.
And Travis sees it in the dream. We actually see his just like countenance completely shift into abject terror.
Yes. So
True.
I truly believe that there is something out there that does prowl around at night. And also, I think the dog recognized it as well, because the entire movie, the dog always is able to clue into a threat, even when the family can't see it. This is foreshadowed at the start when the dog starts going berserk when Will is breaking into the house. And the family's not even really certain that Will is there. They don't know if someone's there, but the dog's already 100% certain that it's there. And now the dog is like kind of going a little bit crazy. And the time of the day, it's also like not the middle of the day anymore. I think if it was, they would have gone. And the father's like, we'll go at first light. So he clearly doesn't care about adventuring and like looking in the woods. That doesn't bother him. It was he didn't want to be caught out when it was dark or even close
True.
to it.
I don't know about that because I feel like it was midday. Like it was not dusk or anything like that. Like it didn't give off any vibes like that to me. Time of day.
See, I feel
Vibe check.
I thought it was a little bit later, but I'm sure that, one of us can probably go back and just analyze the length of the shadow on the ground for some object. And we can
Probably
probably
could.
figure out the time that way.
Fucking Pythagorean theorems in this bitch.
Now, one thing I will say though, as interesting, is supposedly makes me think that it was written into the script or somewhere that there is actually something, because the cast and crew supposedly had to sign a non-disclosure agreement that forbids them to ever talk about what actually comes at night.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's
So that
fucking
kind
cool.
of makes me think that something was written, or at least there is an idea floating around there, like officially in a something.
I actually really like that, because if it's not genuine lore building, then it's just ardent commitment to the bit,
Right.
and I'm always here for stubborn motherfuckers.
See, there's going to be a sequel. It came at night, and we're going to get to see the monster then.
She's the crime scene investigator. Well, this is what happened.
But no, I mean, okay, those are some pretty interesting theories as to what potentially could be arriving at night. But now, Nico, do you have your mouth guard, boxing gloves, appropriate footwear? All right.
I do.
Much like Gundam Wing, this is just an endless waltz between me and Nico.
Oh.
But prestige horror. We're back at it again. It's A24. We couldn't escape it. Nico, is this prestige horror?
I don't know. Like, ever since we officially broached the subject, that term is so fucking vague. And it's just like, hey, is this a horror movie that has at least some kind of element of drama to it and maybe makes you think a little bit? It's prestige horror. Is it, though? Is it? I genuinely don't fucking know. It's so hard to nail down. I feel like tonally it shares things with other movies in the subgenre, but I'm hesitant to call this anything other than just like a straight-ahead horror film. Yeah, it deals with subjects of grieving and death and shit, but that's not that out of the ordinary.
So, I'm also going to go ahead and ask probably the prestige member on the podcast, Dan.
Oh.
Is this, in your opinion, prestige horror?
I think so. And it's funny, Nico, because I feel kind of the same way you do. Like when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, just because it has some drama and grief and whatever doesn't necessarily mean it's prestige horror. But I do kind of think so, because we never actually have a clear-cut bad guy or antagonist. The film kind of centers thematically around trust and paranoia and things like that, and the relationships between people, rather than here's the antagonist, here's the bad guy killing people or whatever. I mean, that's sort of the backdrop of what creates the situation that everyone is in. But I think because the themes and everything are more centered on the people, I think that kind of puts it in prestige horror, I guess, to me.
I also kind of attribute it to that boat. And, I had a question as to, is this kind of straight ahead horror, or what is this exactly? And I found myself conflicted, because on the one hand, you clearly have a horrific premise and you clearly have horrific things happening. But I often found that the focus of the movie was not so much on the horrific things, but on the personal fallout from the horrific things happening.
Right.
Like, we see this scary scene a little bit of the grandfather. He's got this black kind of bile coming out of his mouth. That in and of itself is kind of, it's just not a good look. But that is not kind of the focus. It's what happens to the family after and how they feel. That's the focus of it. And as I try to, build a fence around the definition of prestige horror, I almost kind of want to say that for it to fall into the category, it's got to have heavy elements of drama within a horror subtext.
Like particularly character drama,
Yeah.
I would say.
And I feel like this does fulfill that. So I would put it there. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we agreed. So this is like in Mortal Kombat where you get the friend, what's it, the friendality or whatever it is, where you make friends, friendship, or whatever
Yeah.
it's called. Like that was what this one
Yeah.
was. So, but let's talk about somebody who maybe wasn't so willing to make friends, Paul. So, Dan, I kind of feel like you could be Paul in an alternate
I
life.
could. Okay.
We'll see. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But
I feel like you would be Paul, Justin.
well, okay, I'm the bad guy. So no. But do you think Paul was right to take some of the actions he took? So, for example, at the start, knocking out Will, tying him to a tree. You think that was fair, Nico?
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly more charitable than I thought he was going to be. Like, real fucking talk. I thought he was just going to be like, nope, sorry. Pfft.
Dan, how about you? Same thing?
Yeah, I think he took a lot of the right actions. They were tough, and I don't know that I personally could have made those same decisions, but I feel like they were the right decisions in at least most cases.
Now let's go ahead and zoom a little bit towards the end where we see, I mean, that whole end conflict fight, that is instigated by Paul by trying to, force Will to show him his son to prove that his son was not sick or infected. So how do we feel about that decision? Would you have forced that as well, or would you have just kind of let him go type deal?
I would have forced it.
I would have let him go.
Ooh.
I might have let him go, but I still would have forced him to show me if the son was sick or not, because that impacts me. Because if I was Paul, my son carried him to bed. So if Will's son was sick, that means my son could be sick. So I feel that I have a right to know that as well. Like I said, I might let him go and leave and not like kill him on the way out, but I would still, you're in my house. Like, let me know if you're sick,
Okay. And this is probably going to get a little philosophical from me, and for the record, I actually think that Paul made the right decisions as well. I think they were hard decisions to make, but like Dan, I think they were the correct ones for his family. But
Agreed.
is there a bad guy? And to put it in more enlightened terms, Nico, who or what is the antagonist of this movie? Some real fucking hard hitting, like SAT fucking, this was on the test, you better have paid attention.
I feel like the antagonist, they're all each other's antagonists.
Oh,
Spider-Man point.
yeah, right.
Yeah, like they all have this sort of web of paranoia that stretches across and between each other, and the only real like genuine innocence that we see is in the sort of like middle third of the movie, right after when Will and his family have gotten there. We actually see that the two families like really getting along. They're like joking and being jovial and stuff. It is really difficult for me to nail down just one antagonist. I think that the just general sort of antagonistic force then is the sickness that's going around. Because like the thing that comes at night, it doesn't really ever endanger, well, it never endangers them when they're in the house. And when they're outside, they're in packs, they're in groups, and they're fine. But when they're in the house, the thing that can get them is the sickness. So I think it's just the plague or whatever.
See, my interpretation of it, and I know, about to go big brain here.
Ooh.
I think the antagonist is human nature.
Ooh, okay.
Insofar as it is human nature that causes a lot of the conflict. Will wants the best for his family. He wants to protect his family. He wants to help his family. So that's his stated reason for invading and attacking Paul's house. Paul wants to protect his family, so he ties Will to a tree. Paul, again, doesn't trust anybody but his family because he can't trust anyone, because you never know if somebody is going to betray you. So all of that spirals into these events. And I hate to do like a whole butterfly effect thing here or whatever, but
Ooh.
when they're out there with, specifically when Stanley runs away, if they had been closer to Will, things potentially, I'm not saying they would have, but in my opinion, things could have potentially turned out differently. Only because Paul can't keep up with Travis and Stanley because Paul has like a limp. Something's like up with one of his legs, and he has like a consistent limp throughout the movie. So he can't really run. He like trips and falls over some like leaves and stuff. So I feel like if Travis had been with Will, the person he'd been with the whole time, Will might have been able to actually help him. And also, Paul is like, "Oh, I got the dog," but then psych, no, the dog gets away from him anyways. So
Hmm.
I personally feel like Will is a little more able-bodied and he's a little stronger, a little faster, maybe a little bit younger too, on the real. But
He looks a little younger, yeah.
I feel like if the families had worked closer together and that paranoia hadn't set in, I think things might have been a little bit different. But I think Dan's about to hit me with the correction glue here. Dan.
No, I pretty much echo your thoughts on that. I mean, I feel
snap.
that, like Nico, I guess if we have to pin down like from the character's perspective, I guess the antagonist would be the sickness, but that's really just to set the stage. I think the antagonist is really more thematic, which would be like paranoia or, like you said, human nature, something like that, that pits people against each other, and not necessarily for negative reasons, but like you said, for protection of all of us, or of our respective families.
All right. So, given that we haven't really identified a bad guy here, gotta ask you guys about Will because there's a little bit of evidence in this movie that maybe he's not being entirely honest. So, Will tells Paul at the start that at first he was with his brother, but then his brother died. And so he and Kim, his wife, along with their son, kind of went on their own way. Later on, while having a couple drinks with Paul, Will says that he's an only child and doesn't have a brother. When Paul presses him, Will's like, "Oh, I meant, like my brother in law, who's kind of like a brother to me." Then later on, he actually has a gun. When before, Paul had said, "Hey, just for right now, let's lock up all the guns." We got to wonder, is he being completely honest? And I'm going to turn to just a really honest guy, Dan. What do you think?
I don't think he's really being fully honest, but I think that he's telling white lies, I guess, or hopefully, um, and that the kind of answers, the things that he's lying about, don't really impact the current situation that he's in, or at least as it pertains to Paul, who's asking the questions. And I really liked this scene where Will mentions that he's an only child, and then Paul's like, "Well, wait, I thought you had a brother," because in that second I was like, "Oh shit, Will was lying, got caught in lies," and then Will was like, "Oh, he's really like my brother-in-law," and I resonated with that because I have a sister-in-law, but I oftentimes just refer to her as my sister.
Would you believe, Dan, I actually thought about you in that scene?
Yeah,
Because I know you always refer to individual X as your sister. Like you do that from time to time. You've done that for a long time.
right.
I know you don't have like a blood relation sister. So I was like, "Oh, people do this." And I never thought about it like that until you. So
Yeah.
I thought about you in that moment.
Now, that being said, like if I'm talking to somebody I don't really know very well, I usually don't call her my sister. I specify sister-in-law. But like to people that I know and like they know I don't actually have a sister, like I'll call her my sister. Yeah, at that moment I was like, oh shit, maybe he is telling the truth, maybe he's lying. And I thought that was really cool because to me it was believable. His excuse was believable.
Got you. Nico, how do you feel about him maintaining his gat?
I mean, you gotta stay strapped, homie. That's all there is to it.
But no, real talk. He held back a gun. Is that okay or no?
I mean, I don't think it's great, but I'm not surprised. Again, we've established that both of the leaders of their respective families, Will and Paul, are working just to protect their families. They're doing what they can to keep their loved ones safe and alive. So I don't blame him, but I do think that he was certainly being dishonest. Having said that, I don't necessarily take him saying, that I was an only child as him being dishonest. I'm an only child. I have 4 brothers. They're not necessarily at odds with each other. And while, yes, he could have said, like, my brother-in-law, I don't necessarily know that if I had a gun to my head, my first thought would be like, oh, I have to let this guy know that I'm married.
I don't know. This is just me really going off of a guess here. I think Will wasn't being honest about his profession.
I agree with that too.
What do you think he did?
I think he's military.
What makes you say that?
So, and I meant to pause this and look at it more. He has a tat on his arm, Will does.
Yeah.
And I wanted to examine it more to see if like the iconography was like military-esque. But I say that he's military because he is really good in combat situations. Like, he is really good. He's like beating the brakes off of people. And when they get ambushed, his first thought, and I will tell you this because this is not the thought of a normal person. He's like, don't shoot him. I need to interrogate him for information. That is not the thought of like a normal person in that situation. If you're being shot at, fight or flight, most people aren't going to do that. Most people are going to either beat him, incapacitate him, and run away, or beat him to death. One of the two. But Will literally was like smart enough to think like, hey, this. And then time and time again, he's been shown to be a better fighter than Paul. And I just feel like he got it. I think he's some kind of former military or something like that. And he was like, I'm in demolition. And I was like, oh, he like, is that kind of like a joke? But I don't know. Dan, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about what he actually was. I just figured he was probably lying, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I didn't think that far into it.
I mean, true enough. Now, I want to ask you guys a real quick one-off. Do you think there was anything going on between Kim and Travis? We only ever get to see one quick scene of the two of them. After, side note, Travis is a fucking voyeur, my guys.
Yeah.
Travis is a fucking voyeur.
Yeah.
This guy likes to go up to the attic where apparently all the sound goes in the house. And he's over here listening to, as the subtitles say, passionate moans of Kim and Will. I don't know what you doing, my guy, but stop that. Cut that out. It was okay to like listen in on the parents' conversation when they were talking about him. I was like, fair play. But like this whole like, I'm gonna be a little, it's not even a peeping Tom. It's an eavesdropping
Travis.
Like, that's all it is. But back to it. So kind of after that, he runs into her, Kim, in the kitchen, and they have a little kind of talk, and she seems to want a little more from the conversation. And he really backs away from it. Is she just being friendly there? Is there something more? Is Travis imagining it?
I think she's 100% just being friendly. Like, I don't take that as any kind of sexual tension whatsoever, except from coming from Travis, but I don't take it as being reciprocal in any kind of way. Like, you never see her dreams, and you don't see her, like, knocking on the door, be like, hey, yo, Travis, you want some fuck? Like, it's his dreams that you get. It's all of his perspective. And there's also a point in the shot where the camera, like, stays a second on him looking at her chest as she stretches back. Yes. And then she leans back forward to sort of cover up a little bit, and he, embarrassed, slinks off. So I really think that was just genuine enjoyment of having human interaction again, which, given current day that we are living in, I fucking get that.
Dan, your thoughts?
I'm the same. I feel like she was just being friendly, and he was also just being friendly. But I think that because we see it from his perspective, there was a little bit more of an interest, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that he was like trying to like hit on her or anything like that necessarily. But I think that, again, it was being friendly with a little bit of interest there. You know? He
doesn't spit game at any point.
No.
That would be so fucking funny if he did, and just like totally discordant with the rest of the movie if like Justin played Travis instead.
No, it'd be like when they're sitting there and they're talking about like what foods they like and don't like, and then he's like, what are you having? And then she tells him like, yeah, I'm having like a red velvet cupcake. And the fuck is a bread pudding?
You've never had bread pudding?
No, the fuck is a bread pudding, bro?
It's a European thing. It's good.
No, Justin has breadfruit instead.
Yeah.
I do have breadfruit. You're right about that.
True.
That's what we do. You know, and he's like, oh, I'm having this and this. And I would like slide her the cup. Oh, and I got you a little bit of Henny. Why don't you drink it? Just played it off real smooth. Why not? We're imagining it.
Yeah.
He's 17. He's 17 years old. This is the first not your mother titties he's seen in God knows how long.
Yeah.
Like, can you blame the man? Can you blame the man?
Riley Keough is pretty bad too, so like there is that.
She is. Mm-hmm. She is definitely. She's a great mom in this movie.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. She has bad luck with kids.
She really fucking does.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, the lodge didn't go so hot.
It's pretty cold, actually.
Well, let's go ahead now, and we'll turn this one around to what would you do? So it's going to break down like this. DOTD goes on a mountain retreat to really hone our podcasting skills when the world is strucken by...
Strucken?
I was thinking about that for a second. I guess the correct word is stroked. So the world is stroked by another kind of deadly virus, and we don't really know what's going on, but it's the same exact symptoms as the movie, and it's pretty clear that we gotta like mountain man it up and just like hole up in the mountain retreat. So some of us are more useful than others. So the first thing I want to ask is...
Which one of us dies first? It's me. It's fucking me.
I wasn't even going to ask that, Nico.
Okay.
I was going to ask, if it was the three of us having to survive in the wilderness, like in a mountainous, and we have a house, what would be each of our roles? Like, what would be our duties? Nico, what do you think Dan would do?
I think Dan would be like, he would be the fucking forest ranger, like going out and like procuring water and food and berries and like getting some morel mushrooms along the way. Be like, look, motherfuckers, this is what we're doing. These are the steps you take. This is how it is. It's how it fucking is.
All right. Now, Dan, what do you see my role as being in this kind of unification?
See, I feel like you'd be the hunter. You'd go out and fucking tackle some rabbits and shit.
Tackle the rabbit?
And bring them back.
Just the size difference there. My God.
All right. And Nico, so when it comes to you, I actually kind of foresee your role as more so of the, well, two-prong.
Oh.
First, and it's funny that you guys said you see me as the hunter, because I actually think while I might end up doing that, I would have assigned my own role as probably the doctor of the group.
Okay.
Because in terms of like the herbs and the medications and whatnot, I know a couple herbs, bro.
Bruh.
Like personally, I met them.
No, fuck that. You're the one who never goes to the doctor. You get sick and you're just like, fuck it. I'm going to just lay here in bed and die until I get over this.
But
Tell me that's not you.
That's because I don't have access to my herbs.
Yeah.
Okay, Resident Evil 4, fuck out of here.
I need to mix the green one with the red one, and then I'll be okay. I'll be better than okay.
Yeah.
But
what would I be doing?
Nico, I actually see you as the kind of, and you're gonna take this the wrong way, right?
Of course.
I see you fulfilling the role of Stanley. Stanley's the dog.
Oh,
so,
I thought you meant Yelnats for a second. I was like, what?
Oh, no.
Different movie.
Wow, what a movie. But I feel like you would keep the group's morale up. I feel like that would be a very important thing. You would look after people like psychologically.
Okay.
Like that would be kind of what you do.
Okay.
Because I feel like oftentimes when I'm like going through these like random poisonings / crazy experiences, I often turn to you, not for your wisdom, but just to hear your like panic makes me feel better. And you're like, dude, how long do you think you can keep doing this for? And just like, I don't know.
Genuinely.
So there is that, but I feel like you'd be pretty good at that, as well as, I feel like we could like make you like a fucking rapier out of wood or something, and you can use that to like defend against whatever comes at night. Give it a rapier to the eye. Really tell it what's going on.
Yeah, give me some fucking sock and boppers while you're at it.
Yo, that would be dope.
Yeah. And you could also be pretty good at just helping to like create shit and like design shit for like protection or like
maybe,
that kind of stuff.
Maybe.
So that could happen. Now, the second question I have is this. So we got our group, we all got our roles, and then one day someone breaks into the house. So naturally we persona stomp him out. And then afterwards, he's like, but wait, I got a crew, and our crew could link up with your crew and we'll be better for it. Would you? Would you invite another crew into your house?
Probably not.
I think I would. I personally would. But that's one of those situations that's just fucking hard. I don't know. But I feel like once they've been properly vetted, I think I would.
See, because this is the problem, right? I don't know if I would be accepting of a group. I think I would be accepting of an individual, because a group, once they're in your presence, like this is no longer the three of us house.
Mm-hmm.
This is the group's house.
Interesting.
Because Paul, and the one place where I think he fucked up is he didn't trust them. He was like, I have the keys to this. I have the keys to that. This is my house. I invited you. Nah, they're living here now, man. This is everybody's house now. Like, you made that choice to bring, like, once you bring somebody in, they're in. There's no second-class citizens here. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
And I'm very wary of bringing in a group because you can never trust them. And there was every possibility that Will was with that other group, the like attack group or whatever. And he didn't want to shoot him because that was a member of his group. And then I realized it's probably not true. It's probably just a small point, but we don't know if like they're like an advance party for like a raiding group and they're going to like drop our defenses. They're going to like cut my pitfall traps and all that. And then it's just going to be like, nah, we got you. Haha, your defenses were low. But having said that, they could also add more combatants because like between, the three of us, I feel like we could also potentially use like a fucking storyteller,
A real doctor.
a real doctor. All these things are very useful. So I don't know. But it's interesting to think about because truly it is a difficult choice to bring a stranger into your midst.
Yeah. I would die first for the record, though. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If to die, I feel like either Nico's killing me or
Haven't done that in a while.
he's like, yo, Justin is sick. No, I'm not. I'm okay. No, you look sick.
I just saw you
like-
blow your nose, B. We can't be having that.
Nah, between the three of us, I'm the fucking germaphobe, bro. I'll be like, Nico, I'm sorry. You coughed one too many times for your own good.
Yo, you remember that one time when Bonner was sick? And you and I went down.
Oh, no.
And we wiped down every surface in our house, including like we went outside our house and wiped down like all the railings and
You
banisters
went
and everything.
outside, too?
Yeah, Nico, you were there, bro. You were there.
Oh, shit.
And we would get him like Gatorade and stuff and just like sit it outside of his door.
I remember now, yeah.
Yeah. Dude, Bonner came down with like some kind of like real death defying like illness, yo. And I was like, nah, no one in this house is getting that. So it was pretty wild. But it worked. It did work.
Yeah, we were protected.
He is still alive.
We were protected.
So are we.
All of the above. So I want to know real quick, besides what we've all talked about, is there any kind of major criticisms you have in the movie, just in general?
Nothing major, really.
I do wish that we could have seen what the actual thing was that comes at night, but similar to Bird Box, I just have to accept that I'm never gonna get that sort of like satisfaction, and that's fine.
Okay. I do have one, a smaller one. I wouldn't call it a major one, but I'm gonna save that for my score,
Okay.
which is coming up now. So looking at Rotten Tomatoes here, oh buddy, do we have a gap? So this movie's sitting at an 87% from critics, so fairly high, but a 44% from the audience.
Damn.
Wow.
Pray tell, how could this happen? I want to ask you, Nico. I mean, you from your ivory tower, how dare you cast your gaze upon the common people?
It's on our agenda, trust me. No, but I think it must be it's a sad movie. It's really fucking sad, and like, it had a really small budget, but it got a lot of attention because it has some star power and also like a great studio backing it, and it did well at Sundance and everything. But I think just for the fact that dude like murderates a fucking kid, and that's never really too great, but I don't know. I think it's just a really sad movie, and that's why people didn't like it.
Dan, did the plebeians like me and you not like prestige horror? Is that what happened?
Maybe, but I think part of the reason is on a technical level, this is a pretty good movie. Like we said at the beginning, the audio, the visuals, everything was great. The writing was pretty good. Like, I can't really knock it on anything like that. So when I think about like what critics would probably be like watching for, it checks all the boxes. But to me, it's missing something. And I guess this kind of goes into like my score and my rating, but like,
Well, go ahead. Tell me your score. What's going on?
I guess my score would be like a 60, 65.
Okay.
Like, it was a good movie, but there was just nothing in it that like gripped me, or that it was just missing special sauce, you know?
You know what's funny? I actually, Dan, I'm surprised we're on the same wavelength here,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
I thought we'd be different.
Okay.
But I give this one a 69.
Nice.
And
Nice.
my rationale behind it is this is a very good technical movie. I couldn't, stop me if this sounds familiar. I couldn't knock it on any kind of technical level. That being said, this movie felt like a really grade A cut of steak with no seasonings. I never felt more like blah about a movie. I never have. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It exists and I watched it. and I guess it's good, but it exists. I just don't feel any way about it. And I also feel like all this stuff happened and people died, but I truthfully, I'll tell you, the only time I felt truly anything at all was when Kim starts crying that the son died.
Yeah.
There's like a solid like 30 seconds where I'm like, oh shit, something's happening. And then like kerblow, he hits her with the sniper rifle shot. And then it's like, oh, problem solved. Like, no, go ahead, Nico, say something.
No,
say something.
You're correct. The problem is solved in a way.
And like, that's it. That's really it. I just don't feel anything from this. So because of that, it's gonna get a 69 from me. Just lack the special sauce. Nico, where do you place this one? We all know, preface to the audience, as Nico adjusts his professor's robe, readies his tomes of knowledge, pushes up his glasses as they catch the glint of the light, much like Gendo from Evangelion. Go ahead, Nico.
The charts are all spaghetti. What's happening? No, but Justin, you have to get in the robot or Dan will have to do it.
Oh.
No. What do you mean Dan's my mom? But no.
Oh, Christ.
Wow.
Evangelion, folks.
Yeah, maybe we could review that for the pod. Anyway, I'm not going to give it that much higher than y'all. Like, there's a lot of echoed thoughts here. I agree with everything y'all said. This is an extremely well-made movie, but it didn't have anything that really just dragged me into it. I would watch it again happily. I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I'm going to give it a 73.
And then you know what's funny? The thing is, like, we could sit here as we have. Like, this was probably one of our more academic pods where we sat down and analyzed themes. And this movie has that in spades. It's like the perfect partner for you on paper, but for some reason, you just don't feel the connection.
Yeah.
And that's to me what this movie is. Like, it's so good on paper. And it's technically great. Very impressive. Credit to everyone involved. But I just don't feel it in my heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, Nico, your 73 is really good. Now, quick question, do we recommend this one to the viewers?
I would. Honestly, like, one, just for the technical aspects, it looks just fucking mint. But I think this is a good way to sort of see if you are someone who enjoys prestige horror. Like, this is a pretty good litmus test, I would say.
I actually think this is a solid litmus test.
It is. Yeah.
There's one or two others, but I want to save those until we actually review them.
Certainly.
All right. So, Nico, that's a review from you. Dan, how about you?
See, I'm torn. I'm going to have to say no. Just only because, I mean, I think if I looked at it by itself, I would say yes. But there's just probably 45 other movies on this podcast that we've done on this podcast that I would recommend first. So when I think about that, I mean, if you've already seen a shit ton of horror movies and you still want to watch another one, sure, go ahead. But I think if you're like, yo, Dan, what's a good horror movie? Or even what's a good prestige horror movie or something? I would probably not. I would recommend other things first.
Okay. I'm very torn. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a no from me, but with a very big asterisk that if you are into the drama element of horror movies, if you are into prestige horror, I think you may find yourself more enthralled with this. People who enjoy the kind of discussion that we had, if you sincerely enjoy that and you like having that by yourself in a dark room while watching this movie, then yeah, you're gonna love it. That's what I think. But I think that the common audience rated it so low because I think in a way probably some people feel let down because they weren't trying maybe to discuss amongst their peers on a podcast what actually comes at night. They probably sat there and they were like, well, nothing came at night, so now I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And I that's what I have to assume the score is that low for. So I guess bearing that in mind, this doesn't get the golden seal of approval. And I guess I got to ask, any last words before we, bring this one to a cease?
I just want to give Riley Keough a hug.
She goes through a lot, doesn't she?
She really does.
Watch Logan Lucky for a much happier ending for for Riley Keough.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, no, I think she's great. I said it on our podcast review for I was going to say the lounge, the lodge. I think she was the standout there. Absolutely amazing in that. And I hope to see her in more horror. I really like her. So any other last words, Dan? Anything from you?
No.
All right. Well, that's been it from us here at Don't Open That Door. As always, dear listener, we ask that you're kind to one another, try and avoid situations like the one in this movie. And as always, dear listener, please don't open that door. Bye.